Welcome to Spenelli Speaks. Hi everyone, Danny here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a great day. I am super excited to talk to you about the 7th book in a series of unfortunate events. Now, I am really excited about this month because I am actually going to be buddy reading this book with Christy from Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. And as you can see, I have made a lot of little markers in the first section. I have already read the first 2 chapters as I am keeping up with Christy, and we are starting to discuss what we have read so far. And I think what's really great about doing a buddy read for a book like this is when you're reading with somebody else, they point out things that you may have missed or that you never even thought of being important. So I'm really excited. Christy has already talked a lot about symbolism, some of which I've never even thought of. So I'm super excited. Like I said, I've read 2 chapters so far. And in the first 2 chapters, we find out where the orphans are going to be staying. So this time around, they end up going to a village, and they kind of pick it out of a brochure that Mr. Poe gives them, which is really unusual. But apparently there's some kind of orphan protection program where villages are taking in orphans to, I don't know, care for them. But it's weird because they don't seem very accommodating, let's just say that. But they go through the whole, it takes a village to raise a child kind of gimmick there. So they picked this particular village because it is called the VFD. Now, significant? I think so. We've met a few characters. So there is a police chief who I am very suspicious of. We also meet this handyman named Hector, and he's so nice. He really just kind of takes the children under his wing, and it's very sweet. Now, is he going to be a good guy or bad guy? I'm not quite sure, but so far he's shown himself to be pretty nice. Now, one last thing I want to tell you before I continue my reading is in this village, there are a ton of crows. I mean a ton of crows. And the crows' nesting pattern kind of dictates when the children can do the chores that they've been mandated to do. And I was thinking to myself, wow, a flock of crows is called a murder. I wonder if there will be murder in this book. Okay, I have read the 3rd chapter. I was outside reading the chapter because I'm trying to get more fresh air, and I did my unboxing video out there, and I got bit by a ton of mosquitoes, even though I sprayed myself with bug spray like 7 times. So I'm probably getting some kind of poison in myself. But, so right now I am getting my food ready. We're having leftovers tonight. Leftovers are the best. Don't pay attention to the dishes. But yeah, so I read the 3rd chapter, and and Christy, who I'm reading this with as a buddy read, brought up a really interesting point that now is haunting my thoughts, and that is Sunny, the baby, will say some kind of word. And in my head, I'm just like, oh, baby talk, whatever. Don't care. And then it'll she actually means, and then this is this sentence long something or other. And Christy brought up a really good point. She's like, what if it's an actual word? What if it's a real word, just maybe in a different language or whatever it may be? So she was thinking about looking up these words, and I was like, oh my gosh, have I missed an entire piece of the plot for 6 whole books? Like, this is why you do a buddy read, because someone else reading the same exact book is going to have a different perspective than you and just blow your mind when you're like, whoa, I had thought that I had this whole thing figured out. And then you come out of nowhere and start talking about things that I never even considered. Like, I literally, like, Sunny, baby talk, don't care. I hardly would even look at the word. I would just skip the word. As a reader, when I'm like, whatever, I just skip whole sentences sometimes. Unbelievable. So, word to the wise, do a buddy read with somebody, because you are going to read a book much differently than what you would read by yourself. Little bit about this chapter. We meet Hector a little bit more closely. We kind of met him in the last chapter, but here he kind of gives a little bit more about himself, and he seems like a really nice guy. He's definitely not a rule follower, which this town is all about the rules. And it's hilarious. I wish there was some kind of like manifesto of all of the rules, because there's clearly like almost 20,000 rules in this one town. How do you possibly remember all of those rules? Oh my goodness gracious. So I'm going to continue forward and see what else this town has to offer or not offer. But I have a feeling that they're going to have some fun with Hector, and I think there's going to be some mayhem pretty soon. So we'll see what happens next. Good morning for me, maybe not for you, but it's morning time for me. It's almost 9 o'clock, but I've been up since like 6:30 on a weekend. So I still am in my pajamas. I'm outside because the dogs have just been hearing a ton of noises and they will not stop bothering me inside the house. But I thought I'd come out here and read a little bit of Lemony Snicket's The Vile Village. Of course you knew that because this is a vlog about this book, but I just finished chapter 4 and I sent a message to Christy, who I am buddy reading this with. And it's funny because in the last chapter, Christy brought up the fact that Sunny's language is interesting in the fact that, like, is it supposed to represent something else? And in this chapter, Sunny says Blake when they're talking about poetry, and I was like, oh yeah, William Blake, so that makes sense. And then I'm so silly, I keep reading about the tree in this book. There's a tree called the Nevermore tree, and I'm like, why do they call it the Nevermore tree? And then like 5 seconds later, I'm like, oh my gosh, doink, of course. All of the ravens, all of the crows, like, land in this tree and they roost there. Edgar Allan Poe, the Raven, Nevermore, duh. So I thought that was so, like, Danny, you're such a dork, like, duh. But that kind of brings me to another question, and I was talking to Christy about this. But, like, is this a middle grade book then? The amount of literary references that Lemony Snicket showcases in this book, you have to wonder, like, is this a middle grade? Or is it kind of like how we see in some children's movies, like I think Shrek is a perfect example, where it's a kid's movie, but there are a ton of adult jokes in there. It's almost as if it's meant for kids, but allowing adults to enjoy it too. So say, for instance, if you're reading this to a child, you as an adult have enjoyment in it as well. So I'm really, again, I'm fascinated by these books. They're just so enjoyable, and I feel like such a sleuth when I'm reading it. So I'm gonna jump right into chapter 5 and let you know what I think. Hi, I'm back inside finally, and I have read 2 more chapters in a series of unfortunate events. I've read chapter 5 and 6, and good chapters. I think it's kind of goofy how in this book the theme is, you know, it takes a village to raise children, and these poor kids like have all these chores and all this stuff to do. It's almost like they are like raising the village. I mean, not in like a disciplinary way, but like they have to do everything. Like, they're not really being cared for. They're more or less just being told what to do. And yeah. At the end of chapter 6, the reader gets like a big like, ooh, yay, like something big is gonna happen. And then like immediately in the next chapter, you're kind of just like, don't jump to conclusions, because what it is may not actually be what it is. But also in that same chapter, in chapter 6, we meet a character who is starting to kind of reveal potential clues for the VFD, not the village, but what Isadora and wow, why can't I remember his name? Dudley is not the one. Dudley's the one that I can't remember, but the Quagmire triplets had mentioned something about the VFD, and this character who's just been introduced might also have some clues. And he makes a comment about the Baudelaires' parents. So we're getting to maybe the halfway, I think we're like in the halfway point of the book, and we're getting some interesting details. So I'm really excited to see what could happen next. So I'm using a headband as a bookmark. So in case anyone was wondering what I use as bookmarks, it's usually whatever is around. All my bookmarks are in use, so headband it is. And that happens to be for the Bio Village, because I'm being innovative, like, you know, Violet would be. Anywho, so I've just finished the 7th and 8th chapter, and in these two chapters, I wouldn't say like a ton happens, but a few significant things happen where the children are starting to get more clues, and they're starting to understand a little bit more. There's a death, but not the way we think. And there's a little bit of talk of like mob mentality, so very interesting that they're even bringing that up in a kid's book. But also, overall, again, this world seems so bizarre, like not our world kind of stuff. Like, how on earth would a village like this exist? Like, they're talking about burning people at the stake. Like, what? So yeah, still enjoying it. Christy and I are having great little conversations about what we've learned. And yeah, so my headband will stay in there until I find a bookmark that is suitable. And yeah, it's the morning. I'm on my 3rd cup of coffee, which doesn't happen very often, so I'm sure today will be very interesting. But I'm going to pause on this for a little while and move on to some other books and come back to you and let you know what I think. Y'all, I tell you what, my dog, Dwight, is a killer. I came out here to talk to you about Lemonade Snicket. I bring all my stuff out, and the dog like ran out here real fast, and he freaking caught a bird. Can you see him back there? Where is he? He's over there. Can you see him? He's sniffing around where the bird was. So this is what happened. I come out here, and he runs, and I see him catch the bird and like try to, and I'm like, no, no. And he like I see him do like burp, burp, like that, like, and he's got a ton of feathers in his mouth, and I clap him away, and I run over there, and the poor thing is like, I can see it like breathing, and I'm like, oh my God, like I don't even know what to do. Like I don't want to touch it because what if it's got diseases or something? I don't know. And it's just like it's like pulsing, and I'm like, oh, I don't even know, like, how do I put it out of its misery? And all of a sudden it like pops up and it like starts to like move, and then Kingston attacks it again, and I'm like, get away from it, and then it like flies away. My dogs are killers. So rude. On to some other unfortunate events. My goodness gracious. So I ended up, I think last time I spoke to you, I had finished like chapter 7 and 8. So I was starting at chapter 9, and I ended up finishing the rest of the book. Because at this point, as you can see from the illustration here, this is where Count Olaf comes into play. And once Count Olaf comes into the picture, you know, stuff just kind of escalates pretty quickly. So there's a little bit of murder that happens in this, not just the crows, but some actual murder. And the children are said to be the murderers, and of course, being children, that's just ridiculous. But anyways, they get sentenced to burn at the stake, because you know that's how they deal with crime here. But I don't want to give too many spoilers away, so I just want to point out a few things that I found really interesting to the story itself. For quite some time, I have been thinking about the fact that these children, every time that we are... Bugs! Every time that we meet the children again in each book, you know, we're told that Violet is 14 and Klaus is 12 and Sunny is a baby. And I apologize, there's people. Like, there's never people out here. And I'm out here and now there's people just screaming. There's no need to be screaming. Anywho, this is an interesting vlog we've got going on here. But they're always introduced as their ages, and in my thought process, you know, we're into, you know, book 7, and I think to myself, like, does this story have time? Like, are we acknowledging that time has passed? That is one of the most irritating things to me with a story, especially a series, is when time has not passed, where time isn't considered and the story just continues without acknowledging years passing. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, you see it a lot in TV shows, especially animated shows, where you have a show that goes on for like 20 years and everyone's the same age. Obviously, I get that, but I don't like it in stories. So it made me really happy when, oh my gosh, it's like, this is like the worst vlog ever. Ugh. So it made me really happy when the author acknowledged time in this story where it points out that Klaus turns 13. So we know that time is passing and the children are getting older. So I really, jeez, no, it's a bee. Oh, I'm gonna get stung. I'm so sorry. I feel like a total dork. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna die out here. Okay. And then a couple of other things too. So I was very happy that he acknowledges time, because it's one of my biggest pet peeves. In chapter 12, like, so we're almost done with the book. He finally, as an author, is like, you know, you really shouldn't be reading this story. It's super miserable. There's, you know, it's not a good story. It's unfortunate. You should probably turn back now. He talks about the littlest elf again, and yeah, so that always is very comical to me, because he always mentions it like at the worst times. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm already like, I have like 20 pages left, so, oh my gosh. So yeah, I mean, honestly, we do find out a name in here. So there's a character that is basically outed, and it shares the same name as someone else that is very, very close to us. I'm not gonna give the spoiler away, but when I read that, it's like a moment, like your mind just gets blown, and then nothing else is explained. So I'm really hoping that as the story unfolds, we learn more on that, because I mean, we again miss out on important information about the VFD because Duncan and Isadora, for some reason, their notebooks get destroyed, and we are not able to, I'm so sorry, to get that information. And yeah, so disguises are revealed, we find out who's who, and this story ends very differently than the last 6 stories. So for this one, this story is really the beginning of the rest of the series. And I feel I may have said that before, but this one truly, the way that it ends, it's a beginning. So I'm very excited to continue forward on these. I am so sorry about all of the distractions in this last clip for the vlog, but oh my lord, it's, you know, Twilight here. No, it's not. I don't know. What is Twilight? I don't know. Vampires. It's oh my gosh. It's 5 o'clock. It's 20 to 5. Oh my gosh. The mosquitoes are out with a vengeance. I don't know what I ever did to them, but kill them. So they deserve it. And yeah, so I'm really been enjoying this. I would probably say that I would give this book, I was thinking somewhere in the 3.5 to 4 stars, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it 4 because I feel like, oh gosh, this is horrible. I'm gonna give it a 4 because I feel like this one had a lot of, jeez. I mean, has anybody been attacked this badly before? I mean, I can't even 2 seconds. I think I got bit on my forehead. Ugh. Anywho, I'm gonna give it a 4 because overall the story had a lot of clues and connections that I enjoyed. This story really brought out a lot of things that we've been waiting for. It didn't resolve much of it, but I don't think we ever get true resolution throughout the stories. We just continue to get compounded facts and clues and secret societies, and yeah, so I'm excited to continue on the path and see where the Bundler children end up in the next story. If you recall, in the back of every story there is a letter to the editor. This one is like a what are those called, like it says a telefax, and it looks like the next place is going to be, ooh, the Hostile Hospital. I'm vaguely remembering this one, just a little bit. So like I said, the farther I get into this series, the less I remember from the first time I read it. So I'm excited for the next one, which is number 8, and that is the Hostile Hospital. So I hope you all are doing well. I'm certainly gonna have to try to get some bug spray on because I'm really getting attacked out here. So I hope you're reading something good, staying safe and healthy. And until next time, guys, you know how it goes. Happy reading. Bye.